find a real estate platform that aligns everyone in the entire company financially by making us real estate agents owners, so when the average agent wins, everyone wins, that's the secret to success. And when you surround yourself with like-minded entrepreneurial people who absolutely love what they do, they love serving people, they love God and life, and you put yourself in an environment of high energy, high producing, positive people every day, you can't help but succeed in business and life. We are changing the real estate industry and changing real estate agents' lives. Welcome to the Financial Freedom Forever podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Financial Freedom Forever podcast. I'm super excited today to be talking to Marissa TRUONG from Boston, Massachusetts. Her and her husband, Tom, are huge leaders in the real estate industry. They've been licensed almost 2 decades. They've owned their own independent brokerage with 4 offices and 130 agents. Tom was the president of the Asian Real Estate Association of America for a year, and they're just icons in the industry, and I'm super excited to have Marissa on today. Welcome, Marissa.
Hi, nice to see you, Andre. I appreciate you spending the time with me and for inviting me here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to kind of hear you guys' story. I know Tom was supposed to also be on with us together today, but he's on an airplane because I guess his plane got delayed yesterday. So we're going to be able to hear your side of the story and kind of share everything all together. So I really appreciate you bringing a lot of value to our listeners today.
Absolutely. I have to tell you, before this podcast started, I watched a little bit of the preview of all those people that you had on here before. I'm humbled to be part of that group. So I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, Andre.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I mean, you deserve to be here as well, Marissa. I've seen you on stage. My wife and I are in the company as well, husband and wife team, and do everything together. And be behind every great man is an even better, greater woman. And we all need that in our organization. So I'm excited to kind of hear both your side and Tom's story. But let's start right there. Just kind of tell us a little bit about you guys and your real estate background, and we'll kind of unpack things.
Sure, of course. So between the two of us, I was sharing this with Andre earlier. I was actually the one that got a real estate license first. And the reason was because back like 2004, 2005, we wanted to get into the fix and flip business. It wasn't a big thing yet. And this was before internet. This is before Realty Track, where you could find those foreclosure properties. We went old school and went through the newspaper looking for sale by owners to see if there was equity there, to put some, lipstick on a pig and then sell it for more money. And we were going through different markets in Massachusetts, and I was meeting different real estate agents. And one in particular, I'll never forget, her name is Pam Pinto. She's no longer with us, but she said, you could probably do this and it would change your ROI on your fixes and flips if you start listing these properties yourself. 40 hours in Massachusetts, it's 40 hours of coursework and a 3-hour exam and $500. And I was in. And so lo and behold, what happened was, as I'm sitting open houses, I started talking with people. I actually genuinely got to know people and realized that I could help them find their dream home. If it wasn't the house I was sitting in, it was another one that I could possibly show them. That turned into listings. And then I kind of stumbled on this real estate career. Tom was like, whoa, this is something. And so he kind of followed suit. For a while, he was the fix and flipper, and I was the realtor that was selling the properties. And at the time, we were affiliated with Exit Realty, or I was affiliated with Exit Realty. I have to tell you, like the folks that I worked with back then were so incredibly helpful. They always talk in the real estate market about how you're working directly with your competition every day. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like that with the folks that helped me understand what this business was supposed to look like, and definitely helped us to build the business that we wanted to in the future.
That's awesome. You're one of the lucky ones to have a good mentor and a good place to get started. I know a lot of people don't have that in the beginning. They're just starting scratching for everything that they can. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? And I think the really important thing now as a mentor in the business is that if you're new to the business, you definitely need to keep both ears open and your mouth shut for a long time until you understand the business, until you're ready to really embrace it, until you're ready to take on your first listing appointment or take your first buyer out and you're comfortable with it. You just need to be a student. And that's the
Right.
way we embrace life always, is always be learning.
Yeah, exactly. That's good advice. So let's continue to unpack. So you guys were investors, and you started improving your ROI by being an agent yourself, and then how did you go from that to owning 4 offices and 130 agents? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in between there. So let's share a little bit about that.
There was. And so, if any of you guys know my husband, Tom, he is a serial entrepreneur. And what I mean by that is he's always looking for the next opportunity, the next big thing, the next way to, be the next Jeff Bezos or or the next million dollar idea. And he saw the splits when I was working as an agent and he said, listen, we can do this. We can actually own our own brokerage. I think that you have enough transactions underneath you. You've got a great mentorship. They're willing to help you get your broker's license. And so I became the broker of record. We started with me, him, one business manager, one buyer's agent, and in one location. We actually worked in a market that was predominantly Asian, which my husband and I both are. And it was comfortable for us. We were able to build from that. And again, we built our business on referrals. Agents that we were doing transactions with saw what we were doing as far as our offering, and they started joining us. It was very organic initially, and
Okay.
pleasant, right? Then at that time, the market started to implode on itself. People were starting to leave the industry. People were making different moves. And I mean, that was actually when we saw the most growth in our brokerage. Personally, not so much, but in our brokerage, absolutely. I was saying to Andre, I have no hesitation about sharing this. We got into the fix and flip smaller business, but then we actually took more on than we could handle as far as the fix and flip business. And then when the industry imploded, when the mortgage market imploded on itself, basically our lenders shut their doors, and we were personally responsible for a lot of the debt that we had incurred on on the fix and flip business. We had to file bankruptcy and we had to make it work. But, I really do believe that as things get harder, that's when cream rises to the top. That's when you really realize what is important and what you want from your business and from your life. And we had to kind of set down and reset our goals and become agile as for what we were going to do with our business and how we were going to make it work. It wasn't easy though. I mean, I tell you, Andre, we had small children at home at the time, and dinner conversations were sometimes like this. Why didn't you call that seller back? Well, why didn't you unload the dishwasher? We got into the weeds a lot. I mentioned that to you, but I really do believe with struggles and adversity comes strength.
That's right. Your marriage gets stronger. Your business will get stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right?
Well, that, and you also realize where your strong suits are, like I play to my strengths now. I learned early on that some of the things that Tom is amazing at doing, like picking up the phone, getting over his fear of talking to somebody new, was not my sweet spot, was not where I was comfortable. My comfort level was making sure the I's were dotted, the T's were crossed, making sure. And I said this to Andre earlier. We have this saying in our family, and I call our business our family because that's what it is. Tom is the rainmaker. He's responsible for making it rain, right? And I am responsible to make sure that there are buckets under the rain so we don't lose any of the water. And again, like that was a long time coming for us to realize where we both excelled.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what year was it when you started your own independent brokerage?
So I got my license in 2005. I was with Exit at the time. And then I want to say 2007, 2008 was when we opened up the brokerage, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. But I wasn't with Exit for very long before we opened up Realty Direct. And then we held on to that until 2016. Yeah, so we were in it all by ourselves for that long.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, go ahead. My mistake. We ended it in 2015. We sold our brokerage, our independent, to another company. We sold it for 3 times EBITDA at the time, which was great. But then Tom took a corporate role there in order for him to have his earnout, while I stayed in the traditional real estate transactional business, meaning I worked as an agent. And I have to tell you, Andre, that was such a relief to me, because managing 4 locations with 130 agents and being the one that was responsible as the broker of record, I cannot tell you how many nights of sleep that I used to lose over things like somebody filling out the lead paint paperwork wrong, or somebody saying something that was not fair housing compliant. That was my, it's okay if I like say it was my butt on the line, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, that was, so while and I was watching our agents make a ton of money. Like, at the time we had, I think we had an 70-30 split, and that 30% was supposed to pay for our incomes. And I was watching our agents make the 70% split, and me having to do things like come up with rent and utilities. And at this time, I mentioned to you, I had one other business partner in the business. And like in a month like January in Massachusetts, not a lot of real estate gets sold just because it's so cold. So there's not a lot of buyers out there. And on those thinner months when I was the broker of record, I would have to have those hard conversations with our business manager saying, it's time for a capital call unless we want to shut our doors. So it's not always greener on the other side. People think that brokers have it much easier because all they have to do is manage things, while agents are the ones that make the money. That's not the way it works when you're a broker of record. I'm sure there's probably people watching that can relate to that.
Yeah, I'm sure there are.
I just also remember like having weekly sales meeting because you're responsible for continuing to like keep all of your agents compliant with training, being on the forefront and using that as an attraction tool to build our brokerage. And I would like try to bribe people with meals to come in for our weekly meetings. I remember I had this one presenter come in one of our meetings who actually was a dog that could detect mold. Like I was constantly trying to come up with new content for our agents to show up. Basically, that was in and of a job of itself, for sure.
And you're one of the lucky ones, really, to be able to, you sold your business at the top. It was a really great time for you guys to sell. So congratulations on that. Most brokers aren't able to really do that in this day and age. So after you sold your brokerage, you said Tom took a corporate position and you basically continued being a real estate agent. And then how did you guys end up with, looking at EXP?
That's a good question. So when Tom and I sold our brokerage, he had taken a corporate position to earn out his payout on the transaction. Once his earnout was done, it was common knowledge in our market that his earnout was done, and there were a lot of different brokerages that came courting. Not going to name all of them, but people offered us a lot of opportunity as far as growth to either take over or to go in as an agent. But EXP was one of those ones, and I have no problem sharing this. So at the time, Tom had been elected the president of the Asian Real Estate Association of America, which required that he traveled all over the country and the world to really promote affordable, sustainable housing for the AAPI community. Now, that's a big title, but what it meant was that he was not going to be home anymore. He was not going to be local. And my number one pushback on him taking that responsibility was, listen, this is a nonprofit, not paid position that you're going to volunteer all of your time and not be in the area. Like, putting aside our relationship, what's that going to do to our business? I mean, for 20 years, I built the brand Team TRUONG. It doesn't work without Team TRUONG's face there, which is his and mine, but his, right? How are you going to be a local broker if you're not going to be here? And I remember our sponsors, Tracy Gagnon and Scott Lewis, had presented, and this is interesting because Tracy had found Tom through LinkedIn. She was looking for like-minded serial entrepreneurs, did not know us from a hole in the wall, sent us a video to watch, and then presented the opportunity. And I remember Tom seeing it the first time, and he's like, honey, you got to watch this video. And I was fine. I was happy. We were doing well. One of our kids was in college and was doing great, and we could afford it. And the other one was a rising, junior high school, and she was great too. Like, I didn't need the disruption in my life. I was happy. But he saw the bigger picture. And I remember the next morning, he got on the phone with Scott Lewis, who's our sponsor, and had like 16,000 questions for him. And Scott's like, okay, it's really early in the morning. You have a lot of questions, but I definitely think that we need to take some time to go through these questions. What I'd like to do is set up a three-way call with you, me, and my sponsor. And that three-way call was the one that got him, basically. And when that three-way call ended, he said, Marissa, I'm going to do this with or without you meeting. Marissa, I'm going to do this, so you better get on board with it.
Right.
And I was the skeptic, honestly, Andre. Like, I was like, I don't need the change. You go do that, right? I'm okay with switching brokers. I've done that before, right? I was at Exit before that. I owned my own brokerage. We were with Carrington before that. It's just three letters versus this big name. It's still Team TRUONG, as long as we can still continue to brand ourselves as local
Right.
agents. I have no problem with that. And that was fine for a while. And his little, revenue share opportunity, financial freedom thing was his deal. Well, I was in production. I was, selling 3 houses a month religiously. I had a buyer agent that was doing showings for me. I had a virtual assistant doing paperwork for me. Like, I was rocking and rolling, and he was doing this thing on the side, and things were great. And then what happened was that his little thing on the side became a little bigger thing on the side. And then it became 5 figures versus 3 figures. And then it surpassed that month. I remember to the day that the revenue share surpassed my commission income from transactional business. That was the day, Andre, it became our business. That was the day that I got on board. I have to admit, I did not have faith that I thought this thing was going to work. What I believed was that he was going to continue to do this until he either exhausted all resources, exhausted himself, or it worked. In the meantime, he did not need me for that. In the meantime, I could continue to do the transactional business and we could earn a living. But what I did not realize at the time was that I was earning a living and not having a life. Because, and I'm sure you know this as realtors, when that phone rings, it means that there's a client on the other side of it. It means money, that you need to answer that phone or you're not ringing that cash register. I remember my kids were little, 3 and 5 years old, and I was driving carpool and there were other kids in the background. And the phone rang, and at the time it was like one of those old-fashioned bag phones. And my kids automatically knew that when the phone rang, they needed to be quiet because that meant that mommy was working. Right. The other kids in the car that we were carpooling with did not understand that. I overheard my kids telling their friends to be quiet because mommy was working, and I realized I wasn't making a life. I was making a living and not a life. And so what EXP has done is made me realize what was important. And it's not necessarily just about the money. It's about the time too. And that's what it's taught me since then.
So that's amazing, Marissa. So from being an independent broker with, the broker in charge, 130 agents, 4 offices, to now with, I know you have 1,300 partners at EXP, not the broker in charge.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
How has your business and your life changed from those 2 scenarios?
Well, I had mentioned to you that Tom saw the opportunity to be able to travel for ARIA because he could continue to build the business and not have to be in one geographic location. But let's take that a little step further as far as the geographic location. 2 weeks ago, we were in Asia. We were in Singapore, Thailand, and Qatar for a month. And we hit an all-time high with our partner count while we were gone. That would never have happened if we had stayed in our traditional brokerage. That's one thing. So we see growth even though we're not physically there. The other thing, too, that EXP allows me to do, because remember I had said earlier that through troubled times, you realize where your strength is. I realized what my strength was the connection with the people that were in our organization. That's why that's what I meant about seeing our business as a family, because that's how I see it. What EXP did for us is let me continue to work that without having to worry about the headaches of things like lead paint jail and real estate jail and compliance issues and paperwork not being filled out. Don't get me wrong, I get really excited when a brand new agent figures out how to write an offer, but I would so much rather spend my time working with that agent on building their financial freedom than just writing an offer. And so it's more scalable that way. That's the way I see it.
How has your stress level changed from being the broker or owner to your position now with EXP?
Wow, that's a great question. So the stress is different now than it was before. The day-to-day stress used to be as a broker owner is I'd wake up in cold sweat wondering what one of the agents did that could have possibly gone wrong. Now I wake up in the morning with notifications from some of our agents sharing with me some of the things that they're doing within their own organizations as far as how they're setting up on in-person events to continue to foster community within our organization. I get things like, people really excited about going to their first major event because they can finally afford it. I mean, our lifestyle is one thing, Andre, but I can tell you, and I've said this before, like there are things about EXP that has changed our lives, that subtle things that people don't realize. Like the thing that put me over with EXP at the time wasn't the split. It wasn't the revenue share. It wasn't the stock options. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. It was because of the health insurance. And that was what got me, because, a family of four, we were spending over $2,500 a month. EXP's Clearwater, it changed. So now we spend less than $1,000. That one thing changed my vision of it all. That was like, I was all in. And I don't work for the health insurance company. I'm just telling you that was my why. And then the other quick story I wanted to share with you was that I was in New York. We were doing an Explain event, an in-person event. This is post-COVID, so people were still kind of masking, but it was a pretty packed room. And we had some of our leaders talk about what EXP has done for their lives. And I remember this one guy who I'm like, 6 degrees away from him. I'm not that close to him, but he got up there and said, listen, I haven't shared this with anybody, but what's been going on with me is I'm going through a horrible divorce. My house is about to go into receivership, but I brought in X amount of people to EXP, and that $1,200 a month is putting food on my table right now. And so then I realized, like, the trips are great, like being in Asia was fantastic. Spending time with my family is fantastic. But to know that I was able to impact somebody's life like that, to keep them in their home, to keep them warm and fed without giving them a handout, I was giving them a hand up, and that made all the difference to me.
Wow, man, that's amazing. I mean, we say it all the time that this model is really changing people's lives, and it sounds like a cliche, but it's absolutely really happening. I've never seen a company anything like it as well. In the 32 years I've been in real estate, and giving us ownership and giving us the opportunity of the things that you just mentioned. So I'm right there with you.
Well, the thing I think about is like, and I never thought about it like this until EXP. And this is one of the things I'd like your viewers to think about as well. If time and money wasn't an issue in your life, would your day look different than it is right now? I was afraid to dream like that. I was afraid because the normal, like, I got to get up every day. I'm going to make this many phone calls. I got to go on this many listing appointments. I got to show these many buyers out. Got to pick up my kids. I was in a routine. I was in a rut and didn't even realize it. I was busy and occupied, but not free. And now my day it's opened up for things like this, Andre, to spend time with you. And I mean, Tom and I play off of each other. Unfortunately, he could not get on a plane yesterday. So because of that, he couldn't be with you today. But my schedule is flexible enough. I'd be like, absolutely. I mean, if somebody wants us to share our story, then of course, if it means helping somebody, then we're going to do that.
Yeah, you guys are always big givers. I was excited to get you on our podcast for sure, because you're very relatable to a lot of other solo agents and independent brokers out there that have gone through and are currently going through the same struggles of what agents do on a daily basis. And it's great to get the word out of how this model is available to everyone, and how it can really change people's lives if they get plugged in. What would you say to an independent broker or owner or a team leader or even a solo agent, because you guys have kind of been all those, have had all those roles in the past, that was like yourselves, kind of skeptical and not really on board, not looking for a change. Obviously you're happy that Tom saw the vision and went for it. And then you saw it soon, later. But what would you say to someone that's kind of closed minded and not really open or comfortable?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing was to get out of my own head as far as thinking that it was going to work. And then the second component of that was, is it going to work for me? So I guess what I would say to somebody that's thinking about their lives in the bigger scheme of things and an opportunity that has presented itself to you, like EXP, is this: there is no such thing as get rich quick or easy. You have to put the work in. You have to be committed to your own success and your own future. For so long, even before I had my real estate license, even before we were flippers, I worked corporate. And I thought that every time I got a great performance review and I rose up in the ranks of corporate America, that I was on my way to success, right? But I realized that the definition of success is very different now than what I thought it was before. And so for somebody that's still looking at this opportunity, the first thing you need to do is ask yourself how you define success. Are you truly independent when you're talking about working for another office? Are they allowing you to do things like brand yourself? Are they allowing you to do things that make you a business owner? Do they really have the vested interest of you as a partner in the business? I mean, we are all, Andre and I both, we're shareholders in EXP. We get a say in the way the company is run. And for an office or an agency being over 90,000 agents, I got to tell you, I mean, we are in a very tumultuous time, and yet EXP continues to remain agile. Now, how many companies that you know that have 89,000 representatives that can do that? So if you're looking at this opportunity, make sure first and foremost, you check in with yourself to see what it is that you really want.
Yeah, that's great advice, Marissa. I appreciate that.
Sure.
What would you say was the biggest kind of surprise being a cloud-based company? Was there any surprises that weren't what you were expecting, better or worse of what you were expecting, partnering with EXP?
Oh, I mean, the whole idea of embracing a cloud-based brokerage and like not having your traditional brick and mortar, at least initially, because remember, Andre, we've been with EXP since EXP was a penny stock and nobody had kind of heard of Zoom. This was pre-COVID, right?
Yeah.
And so that was took some getting used to, quite frankly, because, I was one of those people that would get in my car and drive to an office every day, whether that be, a local office, because again, we had four, one was closer than the other ones were, but I had to be present to be present. And I realized I didn't necessarily have to be present in order to be present. That was a huge difference for me. And then, so at the time when we had joined EXP, and this is personal information, we actually were homeschooling my younger daughter. And so we had taken her out of the traditional brick and mortar. And there was a lot of different reasons for doing that. But part of it was because we wanted her to travel with us. So she was a remote student before it became a thing with COVID. And so we were learning this virtual environment sort of together. And so she would be on her Zoom calls as far as her classes. They didn't have Google Classroom at the time. And I was on EXP virtual world playing in avatars, and we were kind of learning this virtual reality together. And that was interesting because I'm doing it from the perspective of a older person, I'm not going to say how old, and a 15-year-old. And
Right.
so it was really kind of cool to have each other kind of play off of each other as far as getting the work done without being in the physical location. But yeah, I think that was the biggest thing, the biggest challenge. But now it's so commonplace. Like, I think now of like maybe 5 meetings that I have, three will be virtual. Like I've resorted, I'm still in transactional business right now just because I'm a mentor. And so I need to show my mentees that I'm not just talking about something that they need to do, I can do it too.
Right.
Excuse me. And so for them, I've actually met people on Zoom as well as in EXP world. My clients, I've had them set up avatars and we've kind of sat down and we've talked to home inspectors in there as well. It's sort of a cool place to just kind of poke around and see all the possibilities as far as how many people you can really meet.
Yeah, the real estate world has really changed in the last couple of decades that we've been in the industry. Even in the last since COVID, there's been a huge amount of change. But where do you guys see your business, 5 years from now?
So, I mean, we also talk about this quite a bit. Like, the objective for us is to continue to build and then find our generals to set them financially free so that we become irrelevant to them. Right. So as of right now, I mean, we have built a great partnership organization, but there's nowhere else to go but up from here, as far as I'm concerned. And what I mean by that is there are a few key players within our organization that have raised their hand and said, I want leadership. But leadership isn't something that you raise your hand and you ask for. It's something that you take. And so as we're fostering relationships with different people, helping them towards that leadership role that they want within their own organizations, the objective in 5 years is just take a step back, honestly, to not be as relevant in the business. It's not about us. It shouldn't be about us. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love having this conversation with you, Andre, but I would be so much happier, 10 times happier, if it was somebody in my organization that was having this conversation with you, that was confident enough to talk about how much it's changed their lives.
Isn't that a great feeling and amazing that, in our traditional brokerages, we want to help our team members, we want to help them grow, but usually the entrepreneurial ones, they may come in at selling one home a month and you help them 4 or 5 years it might take, but you get them to 4 or 5 deals a month themselves. They usually end up leaving, right? They're entrepreneurial. They start their own team, start their own brokerage. And you never want them to get bigger than you, because that means they usually leave and they become your competition. But what you just said is you want, with this platform, we're able to help our team members and our partners grow, and we want them to kick them out of the nest, right, and start their own teams and their own have their own identity, and where we're irrelevant because they take it forward. But because of this model, we're all still connected financially, and you never breaks that tie. What does that mean to you? How does that fit in your mind?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, in the real estate business in general, and I used to say this when I was a broker, and I say this to my mentees as well, it's the only business where you work day to day with your competition. And what I mean by that is, if you're a traditional agent and you're going to a listing appointment, chances are that seller is going to be meeting with other listing agents as well that you would be in competition with. Flip it to 6 hours later and you're showing properties. You could be showing a property, potentially presenting an offer to an agent that is also competing with you on a different listing. So you're working directly with your competition. And, competition is healthy. I think it makes us all better, but at the same time, this fostered environment of community where we're all helping each other, it just works better for me personally. As far as the difference is that, and I've heard Glenn Sanford say this on the stage, I've heard Leo Peretti say this, as well as Michael Valdez, the biggest builders at EXP have yet to join. And so for everybody that you're still talking to, you never know. And I'll give you a perfect example. Like, one of the things that we did when we first started our building of revenue share partners is we've partnered with a real estate school, where the real estate school at the very end of the classes would have different brokerages come in and talk about their offering and talk about what the day in the life was. And that was kind of a feeding frenzy for all of those brokers, including us, to bring in new agents. I had always for a long time had this preconceived notion that new agents are a bigger, not burden, but are heavier to carry through to success than somebody that's already been established. There were 2 agents this past year that hit icon in their second year in the business. So they had gotten their license, capped year 1, and then icon year 2, which is kind of unheard of. If you're not familiar with the terminology, get with the person that invited you to this podcast and they can explain exactly what that terminology means. But they surprised me because, for a long time, I would talk to them about setting goals, business planning, how they're spending their day, how they're, time blocking and everything. And a lot of times when you talk to people like that, it goes one ear and out the other. But for these 2 agents, I'm in awe of how much they were able to actually absorb, because they were, again, using 2 ears and 1 mouth. They stopped talking until they knew enough to start talking. So yeah, I mean, like in my other brokerage, it would be great. You know, in my previous life, it would have been great to see our agents succeed. But you're absolutely on right, Andre. As soon as I saw them surpassing certain income levels, I knew that they were going to be looking at other opportunities, whether that be starting their own team or branching out and starting their own brokerage, or, you know, leaving for a bigger split. There's always a, you know, that there's always kind of like that shiny object that people dangle in front that people get sort of attracted to. And that would break my heart, just because you pour into people and you want them to succeed. But then when they leave you, it's almost like children. With EXP, we all have these kind of golden handcuffs. We all succeed together because we're all owners of the company. And so, I mean, I guess that's a big difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference. If you could do it all over again, Marissa, as far as joining EXP, if anything, what would you or Tom do differently?
Gosh, I wish we had done it sooner. I know that sounds like such like a faux pas, but you know, when we talk to agents now, they're always just like, oh, you know, that EXP is already almost at 90,000 agents. I want to get on the cusp of something new. Like I want to be on the forefront. Well, I mean, the objective the EXP is supposed to have is to get to 500,000. So how much more forefront do you want to be? When
Right.
when we joined EXP, it was 6,000 agents. I think I was like 6,285 or something like that as far as number of agent headcount. And in my head, I'm like, oh my gosh, they already have 6,000 agents. Like I thought they were already kind of big enough. And so
Right.
that was on me not to think bigger picture about things. But if I could do it all over again, I probably would have embraced the opportunity before I did.
That's a great point. Thanks for bringing that up. When that's pretty cool. You were thinking about that, saying, geez, there are already 6,000 agents. Maybe I kind of missed the boat, right?
Hmm.
And now people say that now, geez, there's 90,000 agents. We kind of missed the boat, but people don't realize, yeah, we're going to 500,000, and in my opinion, at some point, 1,000,000 agents, because we're all 50 states, 9 provinces of Canada, and 24 other countries, but there's
Right.
still a lot of other countries that we're not in yet, and we're going to continue to grow. Somebody mentioned that to me the other day as well. Like you said, looking for something new, or maybe it's too late. And the terminology that somebody else had told me was, well, like Amazon? Do you think even though there's people out there that might try to do what Amazon's doing, just like we have a lot of different companies trying to do what we're doing, we're
Right.
14 plus years ahead of the curve. Amazon is the biggest and the best, and it's continued to grow. And I kind of really compare EXP to that, because we're the biggest. We're our number one in a lot of categories across the industry, but we're still growing and have a lot of growth yet to come. So it's definitely not too late. I think it's like you said, some of the biggest builders aren't even here yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that, and also, I mean, it's amazing the growth that EXP has experienced since you and I first started with the company. But again, I love the fact that EXP is so agile that the focus lately has been on the NPS score. And again, get with the person that invited you to the podcast to explain what NPS means. But in essence, the company is constantly looking to improve the agent experience within the organization. And what that means to me is that they're constantly putting us as agents first. And so no matter how big we get, if that continues to be the focus, like, you know, it's one thing to put your clients first, but how can you put your clients first if you feel like the brokerage you're with isn't putting you first? And so that's the thing that really gets me about the company, is time and time again, I've seen us be agile and kind of adapt to the market, adapt to different situations. Like this growth has been phenomenal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes fast growth has pain with it. And so EXP has been extremely cognizant about how fast they've been growing and what they're putting into place as far as fail safes, so that we don't implode on ourselves because the growth is so fast.
Right. Yeah, because we're not a franchise, we're and we're one company, and all those areas and states owned by Glenn and us agents as owners. It makes a huge difference. So we can be agile as the market changes and things shift. They can make decisions that's going to be best for the company, but best for us agent owners, so we can remain, continuing to grow.
Yeah, not only that, but like when you think about the C-suite of the company, and by C-suite, I'm just talking about like the upper management within EXP, like the lines of communication within the organization are so open. Like for those that are not with EXP, like how many times can you actually live chat with the president of the company or the CEO of the company, ask a question, like, and get a response? Like it's incredible how open our C-suite is to agent feedback. So that's like a huge critical thing for me, because they don't sit in ivory towers and just make decisions without taking all of the agents into consideration as far as what's going to be best for us as a community, which I think is so cool.
I agree with you. They take it very seriously. I mean, we get surveys all the time, and I know companies put out surveys, but you don't normally see a lot of change. We actually see the change and the things that we ask for. It's incredible the things that they continue to add and give to the agents, and it came from the surveys and them asking what do the agents want, and to add on to how accessible the higher level directors and people that run the company. I personally, I've met Glenn a couple of times at the conferences, but he doesn't know me any more than the next guy really. And I never had any reason to really reach out to him, but I had a big Keller Williams agent with a big company that I wanted to introduce him to. And it was like 3 or 4 days before Christmas. This was a year or so ago. And for the first time, I just got on workplace chat, messaged him late one evening, kind of shared the information and asked if I didn't know if he was traveling, what he was doing, but would he be available to jump on a quick 20 or 30 minute Zoom. And the next morning, Glenn's like, yes, I can do it today at 11 o'clock or tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get my friend on that day. So we got him on the next day, and we had like a 45-minute Zoom conversation with Glenn, just answering questions and how that happened. I just asked.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when Tom and I were looking at EXP, this is before we signed the independent contractor agreement, and we weren't in yet. He was still poking at it, doing due diligence, and as you mentioned, Andre, we're in Massachusetts now. And at the time, the president of EXP, Jason Gessing, also Massachusetts resident, Tom reached out to Jason saying, I know you're in Massachusetts. I have some questions for you. And Jason's like, sure, come drive up. So he drove up to his house, and they met for a couple of hours, like-minded people, brilliant and entrepreneurial. And of course, Tom said this. He's like, listen, I know that when everybody starts here at EXP, as soon as they close their first deal, they get $200 worth of stock, and then sponsor your first agent, get $400 worth, that person closes the deal, and so forth, right? He's like, I'm getting courted by a lot of the big brands right now to come, because Tom is a person of influence in the realtor community, both locally and nationally. Is there any way that you can sweeten the deal for me and give me more stock options, or a better split, or 100% for the first 24 months? He just asked for everything, typical sales guys. You ask for everything and then you settle for whatever, right? But you don't get unless you ask. And so that's what he did. He asked Jason, who at the time was the president, and Jason goes, listen, I'd love to say yes to you, but you are getting the same exact deal that I got. And so do with it what you want. You can make a success out of it, or you can complain you're just like everybody else. But everyone starts at EXP in the same place. You're no exception. And that actually put Tom over the edge. He's like, great. The playing field is actually equal here. I'm in. That was actually what made him say, let's just do this now, was those words.
And how cool is it that he could just reach out to the CEO of the company and say, hey, I got some questions. And he's like, yeah, come on over to my house.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, their relationship is, they're still close to this day because of that. Because Tom got in his car and drove to the guy's house. And he's like, I remember him coming back going, so I met this guy, and wait till you meet him. Like, he was just so excited about Jason and about how much knowledge he had about the industry and about the vision of the company. He's like, he was also that same kind of visionary that saw the future of what real estate was going to be like within this community of eXp Realty. They were going to change the face of it, and they have. It's incredible.
Yeah, they absolutely have. Yeah, Jason's a great guy too. I've done the same thing with him. Had questions, got on chat, and he answers just like anyone else. It's pretty amazing. It's hard to believe.
These guys put their pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us.
Well, Marissa, I really enjoyed our conversation today. I know our listeners have as well. I think so much. I always ask one last question before we kind of end: is if you're a movie watcher, what's top movie you like to recommend, or if you're a book reader, what's the top book that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
I think this is the hardest question that you've asked me all afternoon, Andre. But so I'm a huge fan of Mitch Albom. If you've read like Tuesdays with Maury, the one book that I constantly go back to, it's like a constant reread, is The 5 People That You Meet in Heaven, because it gives you a perspective of what's really important in your life and what you need to focus on to get to where you want to be. And I mean, the story starts with this guy dying, but the 5 people that impacted his life the most. So I highly recommend that one. It's a short, easy read. If you're an Audible, great Audible. And then a more recent movie that actually Tom made me watch on a flight back from Doha was the Jeff Bezos story. I don't know if you've seen that one. No, it did not get highly rated, honestly. And I'm sorry if there are any actors on this call. The acting was abysmal. But it's a story about how he started Amazon and all of the challenge that he faced and the support and lack thereof until he hit it big. I mean, he was a New York venture capital. I think he was a hedge fund manager, youngest vice president in that specific field at the time. And he decided to walk away from it because he wanted to make his mark in this world. It's very, very inspiring, especially because they're realistic about the challenges that he had. Really cool story.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
I wrote down the book as well. Who was the author?
Mitch Albom, MITCHALBOOM. His most famous book is Tuesdays with Maury, but my favorite one is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Definitely worth a pickup. And it's a quick read, like you'll finish it in a night, I promise. Well,
that's awesome. Well, thanks again, Marissa. Hey, anyone out there that has any questions about eXp, we're in all 50 states. So I'm in Florida, but I have agents in 35 other states and in Canada and several other countries. I know Marissa's in Boston, but they have business partners all over the U.S. And how many countries are you guys in?
So we're in 4 countries and we're in 36 states right now.
It's awesome. So yeah, reach out to us at any time. We're glad to just answer questions, and obviously in confidence. And I'll see you at one of the next live events. Marissa, thanks for joining us today in the Financial.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Andre. See you in Cabo.
All right. God bless.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Listen to what our business partners are saying about our FFF group.
Being a part of our 3Fs group with my luxury brand, to be able to go out there and know that we have such like-minded, amazing, dedicated, hardworking, and passionate people, that knowledge and that ability to be able to reach out and someone to answer within minutes of me having any questions that I might have has been just unbelievably amazing. And I'm so happy to be a part of this group.
What I love most about the Financial Freedom Forever group is the culture of helping and the amount of resources that are available out there for agents who want to grow their business. You can access 4 or 5 different training sessions per week is awesome.
I believe if you surround yourself with like-minded people that are doing 10, 15, 20 times more than me and you put together, we all bring each other up and bring our businesses to the next level and our lives. To learn more about how to partner with us, go to partnerwithandre.com or click the link below. And let's have a conversation.